Good evening. Today we'll be doing task number 8, which is the managing and creating user accounts. For this task, we'll be talking about uh, making a user accounts or and managing them. So first is I will describe will be leading this, in any organization, more than one person has access to a computer or network. It is necessary to set up user accounts in order to give individuals access to their own files, programs, email accounts, choice of internet browser, and history, and restrict access to unauthorized persons. We call that using ADDS or Active Directory. I forgot the else. To organize our network does not correspond with a single tool that is used to manage all facets of Active Directory. Since it is such expansive technology, our configuration of the directory is spread across a number of different management consoles. Let's take a look at each of them and a couple of the most common tasks you will be performing inside this tool. Any of these management control can be launched from any of your domain controller servers. And just like we look at in the previous class, the easiest way to launch this console are right from the tools menu in the upper right corner of the server manager. So Active Directory tools are by far the ones that the everyday server administrator will use the most often. ADD users and computers is the console from which all of the user accounts and computer accounts are created and managed. Open it up and you'll see the name of your domain listed in the left column. Expand your domain name and you will see a number of folders listed here. You are opening this system domain controller in a well-grown network. You may have pages and pages of folders listed here. This is a mere environment. There are only a handful. The most important point are their computer users. The common sense would dictate these are the default containers in new computer accounts and user accounts that join the domain will be located. Like while this window looks a bit like files for with a tree of folders, these folders really aren't folders at all. Each Manila column folder icon that you see here is an organizational unit. OUs are structural containers that we use inside an Active Directory in order to organize our objects and keep them all in their relevant places. Just like the just like with the folders on a file server, you can create your own hierarchy of organizational units here in order to sort and manipulate the components on the Active Directory of all your domain join networks, objects, and devices. So listed are the common practical importance of managing a user account. So why managing user account is important since they provide access control, which is restricting access to various company information to only those who are employed or contractors authorized to view it. So, for example, someone in accounts may not be authorized to access income records or the network and vice versa. So, as point on, it is important to have a uh, uh, managed account on Active Directory since it allows to only or authorize specified users into the network to access all the data. So another importance is the enable device to use more than one computer in an organization, whether the name permanent and premises of desk or work remotely. So it allows users to use multiple any computer as long as they have the account. Another important, less importance is additionally setting up user accounts provide a safeguard against access to a computer or network by unauthorized third parties such as visitors, tradespeople, or individuals. So this helps in the security of the organization. So we'll be performing task 8, uh, which is managing and creating user account. So first, we will open up our Windows Server 2060 and in a video.
Hi, it's Paul Hill from itfleet.com, and in this lesson, you are going to learn how to create and manage user accounts within Active Directory users and computers. This is the most common task that you will need to fully understand if you want to have a successful career as a Windows Server administrator. So, if you want to work in the IT field as a help desk professional, a system administrator, server administrator, or a support specialist, you have to understand how to create user accounts and manage them. So, make sure that you pay attention if that's your goal. This is an important lesson. Now, when it comes to creating and managing user accounts, you really have two options. The first is to use the Active Directory Users and Computers console, or secondly, you can use the PowerShell command line. 9 out of 10 administrators prefer the Active Directory Users and Computers console because it's just easy. It has a graphical user interface. You can right click, you can
Wala ka
type
doon?
stuff
Hello?
in. You have an interface
Ah,
to
naman,
walk you through things instead
nagtanong
of
ko
just
video.
typing in commands.
Naman sa Google, friend, nag-share mo ko sa ano, makita, doon ano, audio.
Eh,
Ah,
dili
wala
man
dito
eh. Ah,
nag-inay das, no? Das,
tama. Anydesk. Ni ano tong Anydesk.
Tulungan ba ako dyan sa ano?
Dili.
Dili. Kung dili kay, ano lang ako, tulungan naman ako.
Dili lang kay pwede rin pud ko magtanaw pud sa ano,
Sa inadex na
sa
lang.
mm,
Baka ano lang ka.
wait lang. Kana.
Na lang.
Mhm. Okay na. Kana.
Tulungan mo na ta dyan pa.
Now, in this lesson, I'm going to be showing you how to use the Active Directory Users and Computers console. Now, the way you can access that is by logging into your domain controller. And over here on the top right, we're going to select Tools and then Active Directory Users and Computers. We can see it here. It's about the fifth or sixth one down. So if we select this, we'll have Active Directory pop up. Okay. Now, if I expand my domain, we can see that I don't really have any kind of structure set up, just the default organizational units and containers. So if you're at your workplace, if you already have a structure set up, you should go with what you have. If you're
Ano
following
man ni ko.
along in this lesson, then what we're going to do is create our own structure. So I'm going to pretend like we work for a company called IT Flea. So the first thing I'm going to do is make an organizational unit called IT Flea. So I'm going to right click on the root domain and we're going to choose new and we're going to choose organizational unit. I'm going to call this IT Flea. We'll click
Yeah.
OK. And then inside of this, I want to have an administrator company called IT Flea. So the first thing I'm going to do is make an organizational unit called IT Flea. So I'm going to right click on the root domain and we're going to choose new and we're going to choose organizational unit. And I'm going to call this IT Flea. We'll click OK. And then inside of this, I want to have an administrators OU where I can put all my domain administrators. And then I want to have a users OU where I can put all of my users, people who just work on the computers or just need to log in, but don't necessarily need to make administrative changes on the computers. So I'll right click on the IT fleet and I'll choose new, and we're going to say organizational unit. And I'm going to type administrators as the first, and I'll click OK. And then we'll do the same thing again. Right click on IT Flea, choose new, and we're going to select organizational unit, and we'll make one for just users. So we'll just call this domain users. Hit OK. Okay, now we have some kind of structure within our domain. Of course, this type of designing is entirely up to you, and how you want to organize your Active Directory objects is your decision. And you might decide to put both administrators and regular users in the same OU, or you might decide to put them in separate OUs like I did. What I'm going to do is create a new user account for myself under the administrator's OU because I want myself to be an admin since I am an admin. So I'm going to right click on this administrator's OU and we'll choose new and we're going to choose user. So far, we've been using the administrator account that was set up by default on the server. This practice is generally frowned upon in the security world, as shared user accounts are considered a bad practice. Because if you have 5 administrators and they're all using the same account, if one person deletes a file or steals a file and you look in the logs and everyone's using the same account, it's going to be hard to tell who actually completed the change or whatever the case was. It's better to create new user accounts and only use the default administrator account as a backup. So I'm going to enter in my first name. I press tab and tab again. Enter my last name. Pressing the
Magkano ako direct eh,
Ay, oh.
funding na
tab key helps you quickly navigate these wizards. So I'll just press tab. And for the user logon name, I'm going to type in paul.hill.
i-type dyan after that fund
Kani?
dara
Saan eh?
lasat that fund para saya.
Do? Gatay po
Ayaw i-kapital eh, small letters lang.
Dili lagi.
Dili ka ka-type. Dili ka ka-type. Hindi, tanong na ako sa inyo dyan.
Ako to nag-type og daghang L.
Oo, ito. Alam mo ka. Sila.
Gani, dili guro siya. Ano
Sila.
siya ka...
Try.
Wala. Ato
Turo.
ra. Ay, mura siya nagalag dol.
Sila. Paspasin na lang. Dali yan. Oh, turo.
Ito ara. Asat at
That
pandi.
fund. Pero ako pugod yun.
Kana.
You'll notice there's a separate logon for pre-Windows
Dili
2000.
mo gud
Now,
siya.
this field adapts your user
Delay.
logon name to a format that is
Dili
acceptable
siya
by older
ang
server
pag-type
operating
niya.
systems, anything before Windows 2000. For example, if your user logon name was longer than 20 characters, it'll be truncated in the Windows 2000 logon name. Okay, so if we had 25 characters up here, it'd only show the first 20 down here. All right, so we're going to click Next. And on the next screen, we're asked to set up our user's password.
Next
Now, I'm going to enter
Next. Next niya. Ado, na next.
na next.
the password that I want to
Password
Mura
use
siya
for my account.
naka-double click, no?
Just type that in.
Balik mo lang sa password. Lasat. Hindi ko ka-type. Ako na pwede ka-type.
Sige daw. Wala no gilabtan.
Naka-type.
So if I can type it in right. Okay, so I'll type it in again to confirm it. And then what I'm going to do, since I'm creating this account for myself, I'm going to uncheck the user must change the password at the next logon. Generally, how a new account creation works is that you will create the account with an Active Directory using a temporary password, something like password 1 or whatever you decide to use. It's hopefully a little more complex than password 1. Once you create that account, you will provide the new user, the person who's going to be using the account, the username and their temporary password. Since we're creating the user account for ourselves, we do not need to use a temporary password and we will not want to change it once we log in. So I'm going to enter the password I actually want to use right here. And by the way, I'm just making it the same as the administrator account just to keep things simple. When I'm using these home labs, I like to just use the same password for everything. That way I don't have to worry about forgetting anything or something silly like that. Now, if we check this user cannot change password option box, just like it sounds, it will not allow the user to change password. Now, this is useful for service accounts
Say,
when you're
password
not
name mo
using an
i-type na ako. Ano po
MSA like we talked about before.
In
Mora
case.
gyapon.
Lasat pan din na small, no?
Nako, di ko ano. Lasat. O man ang gina ano.
Sige. Type lang po
But
ako para
nine
in
times out of
case.
10, you're not going to need to check this particular checkbox. It obviously makes your account less secure. So if security is a concern at all, do not check this checkbox. The password never expires checkbox is also useful if you're creating a service account and not using an MSA. Basically, if you're creating the account with this user interface and you know it's going to be a service account and it's going to be used by, an application and not an actual real person. Now, some people do want to check this on their own accounts so that they don't have to change the password every 90 days or whatever the policies are for your workplace. Again, if security is a concern at all at your workplace, you do not want to check this checkbox. The account is disabled checkbox is a good way to create an account for future use that is not ready to be used yet. So, for example, if you're working in a classroom environment and you know you have students coming in and they're going to need to be able to log into the computers, you might create the account 2 weeks ahead of time and just check this checkbox and make sure the account is disabled so that it cannot be used until they get there. And of course, when they arrive and they're trying to log in, you'll need to come back and uncheck this checkbox so that the account is enabled and it's able to be used. All right, so what we're going to do now is just click next and click finish. And we can see
Next,
that the account has been
finish.
created. Now, first thing we're going to do, since this is supposed to be
Password does not meet the password password. Let's check. Let me know password. Why? Wala pa. Last, time. 1, 2, 3. Ay, kay listen mo na ako. Hmm. May password na tayo.
Say
Dili,
i-password.
kay dili siya mudawat kay ano, ang ato amang full name o ato ang password name lang kay. Jeffrey do lang. Jeffrey Dorin 1, 2, 3.
If dili gyapon i-try Jeff Door ana lang.
Tapos JEFFR. Ito DOR. 1, 2, 3. Tawag niya.
an administrator account, at this point we can see the type, it's just a regular user. So if we double click on the object here, we can go to the member of tab. And we can see that it's just part of the domain users. Now, to make this account a domain administrator, we need to add the domain admin's membership. And the way you do that is by clicking on the add button.
Button.
Now we just need to type in domain admins and then we'll click check names and we can see that it underlined the name here so we can tell that it found it. So if we click OK, we can see that this is now a domain admin user. Now we could set this to the primary group, but we can see here there's no need to change the primary group unless you're using Macintosh clients, which we're not using. So just click OK and leave it just fine like that. Okay, so now we have our user account created. Now one thing I want to show you is how to search and find users or any type of
Okay.
object within Active Directory. We talked about this a
Tama.
bit in the past, but I'm going to demonstrate it to you since we're talking about creating and managing user accounts. Now, every once in a while you'll need to pull up a certain user and you'll just get a first name and a last name. And in our domain, it would be pretty simple to find because we know we can go under IT Flea and we can either look in domain users or administrators. And some companies have hundreds of OUs and thousands of users, so it's not that simple. So what you need to do is click this little search button at the top where it says Find Objects in Active Directory Domain Services. And what we would need to do is choose users, contacts, and groups. And then under the in box, we're going to search entire directory. And we're going to type in the name of the person. So if we're searching for Paul Hill, you can see that it popped up with my account. Now, 9 times out of 10, that's how you're going to find a user account if you're looking for one. You could also go into the advanced and search under fields for the particular user, like division, email address, fax number. Say if they're not coming up with their username or their first and last name, but you happen to know their email address, you could go here into user. You could type in email address and say, it's paul.hill@itflea.com. And you could search for it that way. You could also do employee ID. So there's other ways to search, but 9 times out of 10, you don't need to go into this advanced field. Just typing in their name will be good enough. Okay. Now, a lot of times when you're searching for users like this, the reason why you'll be doing it is to either unlock their account or reset their password. And I can't talk to you about creating and managing user accounts in Active Directory without telling you about resetting passwords. It's really simple, but I just want to run you through it. So what you do, once you find the user account that you're looking for, if I called in and say, hey, my name is Paul Hill, I need you to reset my password and I think I locked my account out. This is what you would do. You say, okay, I'm going to find you. So you go up here and click find objects in Active Directory domain services. And we will type in, first we'll change this to entire directory and we will search for Paul Hill. The reason why we choose entire directory is the most broad search you can do. We could just do the domain if you knew that information. If you didn't have any idea, you just choose entire directory. Once you find the user account, you right click and choose reset password. Now this is the same as that second window when we created the new user account. We have an unlock the account and we have user must change password at next logon. An important thing to keep in mind here is the account lockout status on this domain controller. And we can see that my account is unlocked. If the account was locked, you'd want to check this checkbox down here. Since it's unlocked, there's no need to do it, but it doesn't hurt to go ahead and check it anyways. Now we could create a new password like password 1234, with some exclamation marks and things like that. And we would want the user to change the password at the next logon, and then you would just click OK. I can just do this for demonstration purposes. So if I just create a new password here,
Hindi lang ako mag-create.
we can
Yes,
see
dahil
that if I just click OK, password for Paul has been changed. So you would just give that password back to them. And sometimes they don't even know what their username is. So the way that you get that is just double click on the account and go over here to account.
mag-create.
And you can see user logon name is listed there. Okay. So that's how you would find a user account and reset the password. I'm telling you, password resets are like one of the most common things that happen when you're working on a domain controller or you're administrating a network, especially if you have a lot of users.
Lalala.
Password resets
Sumana.
keep you in business and keep you
Sorry,
busy.
sorry,
Mga
nabali.
So one last thing that we could do is go onto the
Nag-fast
users
forward ka,
container
Joy.
and we can find the domain administrators.
oh,
All right. Now
nawala na.
this is a security group. If you remember, when we created our new user account, we added them to this group. So if we double click on this group and we choose members,
Tubig.
we can see that administrators
Allergy.
account and reset the password. I'm telling you, password resets are like one of the most common things that happen when you're working on a domain controller or you're administrating a network, especially if you have a lot of users. Password resets keep you in business and keep you busy. So one last thing that we could do is go under the users container and we can find the domain administrators. All right. Now this is a security group. If you remember, when we created our new user account, we added them to this group. So if we double click on this group and we choose members, we can see that Paul Hill is a member of the domain admins group. Okay. What I'm going to do now is log into that paul.hill user account that we just reset the password on and demonstrate what happens when you're prompted to reset the password or when you check that checkbox that says user must change password at the logon. So I'm going to click on this Windows button. We're going to choose the administrator and we're going to say sign out. I'm going to hit right control and delete. And over here on other user, choose other user. And I'm going to say paul.hill. Should I spell that right? And I'll type in my password. We'll press enter. And here we can say
Lasat. Ikaw daw, Jap? Try daw, Jap.
Eh?
Lasat.pan. Kulang again.
Awan siya. Delay? Nag-delay gid siya.
Noon ka.
Ano na?
Ay, enter, click ng password. Click ka ng password. Ayaw. Wala pa naman na yan.
Ay,
Ang ibutang kay capital J, ay capital ang J niya, Jeffrey.
what the fuck? Nagdagan siya. Isa pa lang to ka letter. Capital J. Sa pa,
Jeffrey niya,
Jeffrey.
Durin, capital ang D.
Yeah, D. Capital D.
Niya, 1, 2, 3.
Ano?
Wala
Lalalala.
lang daot. Sabi, pas nag-type, maisa lang.
Da?
Eh, ang,
Ano, double lipod ka niyo?
sabi na lang, isay. Sobra dito,
Sobra gid siya, no?
nakakadalawang tayo.
Sino? Atay man ni.
User's password must be changed before signing in. So now I'm forced to create a new password, and I'm not allowed to use that temporary password that was issued by the administrator. And we'll click the next arrow. Oh, and it's saying the value provided for the new password does not meet the length, complexity, or history requirements. All right. So now I have to type in that temporary password again,
As
and I'm
you
going to
can
type
see,
in a
katong
more
gibuhat
secure
ng mga
password.
user is mo
Because I
dapat
love
man.
to use my non secure passwords, I'll press enter, and now it is changing the password. Okay. Your password has been changed, hit OK, and now it will load my desktop. All right, so now I'm logged in as Paul.Hill and I'm a domain administrator, and that is how you manage user accounts. And what we've covered is creating user accounts, adding them to groups. We did the domain administrators group, and we learned how to search for users and reset user passwords. Okay, so I hope you found this lesson useful. You're going to be doing this all the time, especially if you work in the help desk field or even as a system administrator. If you're the go-to Active Directory guy, you're going to have to know how to do this. This is just, you cannot get away without understanding how to do this. So I hope you found this useful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.
So, uh, we have done task number 8, which is manage and create a user account in our Active Directory. So, as you can see, makita sa dere, ang which is gibuhat na mo nga account ganina si Lasat pan mao ni among na login na naman sa among Windows term mo. Set na to. Yun nga, um, account. Mao siya. Mao siya ang maka-login karon sa mga virtual machine. Ano siya. So, and, task 8 we have learned how to create a organizational unit, uh, create a user, uh, I wanna create user, yes, ano, um, add a role to the user, which is add to the domain admin, so yeah, uh, or group as the person in the video called it. I add ang katong user sa isang group. Naka-learn ko na to karon yung how to search kani tayo gusto nimo entire directories or sa domain lang nimo search na to sila sa and also how to reset password or something like that. We also learned how to basically simple things like log in the user into this virtual machine. So that's all we have done in task number 8, and we have learned in task number 8, and we have finished our task number 8. So that's all. Thank you.